RNG gods will decide my fate at the start of each zone by rolling 4 brand new skills and using only them to complete the whole zone. The goal is to hit max level as a hardcore character with a brand new random build on each of the areas, as every new zone will force me to roll a fresh set of 4 skills that I can only use until zone completion. Today was a fresh start. New zone, new abilities, new suffering. I was level 24, feeling great and ready to spin the wheel to decide where I would be thrown next. The wheel wasn't kinda cruel, it was just Stonetalon Mountains. A tiny zone for Alliance, barely used by anyone, but a zone nonetheless. Before heading out, I wanted to reroll my entire build as the series continues. I kept the old abilities in my spellbook so they wouldn't show up again. My handcrafted anti-duplicate staff protection system. Then the spells started rolling in. The first one was Gouge, a lifesaver in hardcore and basically a tiny stop it button for enemies. Then came Exorcism, not perfect, but great for pulling and occasionally deleting stuff. The third spell rolled in like a blessing, a flame burst, a chunky instant AoE that leaves fire on the ground. Expensive, sure, but finally something explosive. And then the fourth spell landed with the Thud, Earthbind Totem. Slow enemies, its AoE, not bad, but not exactly game-changing. So the dream of becoming a melee fire Templar something build was born. The talents were next, 8 of them. At first I got magic damage reduction, then useless druid stuff, then burnout force fire crits, which actually fit nicely with exorcism and flame burst. A bit more crit, a bit more nonsense, and then finally blood craze, a tiny passive heal. Not much, but enough to pretend I had a self-sustain. The build overall looked scuffed but fun. Very me. Then it was time to pick up Stonetalon quests. I flew to Astrona to grab the breadcrumbs. Only 2 quests for the entire zone, which honestly sums up Alliance Stonetalon perfectly. From there, I rode toward the mountain path into a zone that most players skip entirely. Before even settling into questing, I wanted to test out the new build. I pulled my first enemy by firing an exorcism into its face, dashed in with dual-wielding weapons, dropped a flame burst, and watched everything melt. The damage felt really good, until I looked at my mana bar. I cast maybe 3 spells, and I was already sipping dramatically from my last water. I checked my stats and realized something insane. Switching my primary stat to intellect turned me into a monster. My mana tripled, my melee damage went up for some reason, and my spell power skyrocketed. Strength and agility were memes compared to this. Overnight I went from melee guy who sometimes uses spells to full-on battle cleric with fire issues. Now the build actually worked. Exorcism into flame burst, a slice of melee, and everything keeled over. Mana regen was still slow, but at least I had a big pool enough to work with. Eventually, I reached the infamous mine, the god goblin quest everyone hates. I tested the mobs inside anyway, and immediately regretted it. Casters were nuking me from range, I had no potions, and my bandages were too low level to help. I bailed immediately. My sanity was not yet prepared for this mine. Instead, I focused on the easier quest outside, collecting blueprints, fighting operators, smashing up machines. Flame burst roasted everything. Dual wielding felt smooth. Even Gouge saved my life a few times when it worked, of course. Sometimes it refused to activate like it needed emotional encouragement or something. Fashion is power. Even I changed the transmog of my sword to match the whole fiery Templar vibe. You kill better when you feel cool. True story, bro. As I quested north, I kept picking up quests that sent me all over Azeroth for no reason. One NPC wanted me to go to Ironforge. Another wanted me to go to Stormwind. One guy needed me to deliver a letter to Ratchet. I swear, Stonetalon is less a zone and more travel agency disguised as mountains. Leaving the safety of the peak, I wandered down the dusty road and stumbled upon a lone orc standing beside a tiny camp. Just him, a fire, and absolutely nothing else. I checked his stash, his pockets, his tent, nothing. A walking decorative prop. probably a quest giver for Horde players, but I had no idea. I hadn't touched Horde since the open world changes, and even back then I only dipped into it on the beta, so all I could do was nod at his dead body like, "Sorry man, I don't speak your questline," and continue on. Stonetalon always gave me this nostalgic little tug. Back in the old days, leveling through the Barrens felt incomplete unless you wandered up here at level 15 for those early quests, returned around 20 for Windshare Crag, and then came back again in the mid-20s to clean up high level stuff before heading off to Desolus. The zone was sprawling, lonely, full of unused caverns and barrow dens that Blizzard just never bothered to fill. Cataclysm tried, but not by much. I dropped into a tiny Alliance outpost and checked the local vendor. He stared at me like I was asking for the key to the bank vault when all I wanted was water. No drinks for level 25. Not even bread. Completely useless. At least I could set my heart but some low-level sweet nectar and pretend it was enough for my mana addiction. With nothing left to do here, I made the call to head back to Stormwind. From Stormwind, I could hit Ironforge and hopefully unlock the rest of the Stonetalon questlines. On the way, I picked up a breadcrumb from Colin Marin, Dust Devils in Westfall. Great, more traveling, more errands, classic WoW design in a nutshell. Sentinel Hill looked as depressing as ever, but at least the fashion crisis was easy to solve. If I was going to keep playing this Fire Templar theme, I needed to look the part. I switched weapons, tried out a mace, swapped to a glowing two-hander, then finally struck gold with Dark Soul. Fiery, heavy, dramatic. Perfect. With glowing embers in both hands, the character actually looked like he belonged to the build. The Dust Devils didn't last long. My damage jumped nicely, and I felt almost powerful for once. Once the task was done, Colin made me run back to Stormwind just to deliver a special box to Gaxim. More errands, but at least one quest chain finally pointed me back to Stonetalon, the Charred Vale, a tiny victory. Next stop was Ironforge. 2 quests waited there, but I already knew the risk. Classic WoW loved sending players everywhere except the zone they actually wanted to play in, but I crossed my fingers, prayed to whatever deity governs breadcrumb quests, and rode through the gates. Ironforge looks strangely off with the HG textures. Darker, almost too polished, but I wasn't here for sightseeing. I found the quest givers, and they gave me nothing but a delivery to Gnome and a profession task. Alchemy materials, potions, and a very smug-looking NPC asking for ingredients that weren't exactly lying around Stonetalon. Normally, this would be an instant decline. The Zonelocked challenge doesn't play well with profession quests, but after thinking it over, and imagining all the potions I could use later, I gave in. I learned alchemy, bought the tools, turned on Find Herbs, and committed to a little side adventure. The world was completely empty, which meant every herb was mine. Earthroot and Silverleaf covered Dunmaruth like a blanket. A handful of flame bursts cleared wolves that just got in the way, and soon my bags were full of ingredients. Before I knew it, I hit level 26 just from leveling professions, which I took as a divine sign that the detour wasn't entirely cursed. I grabbed the Mage Royale in Westfall, fixed up the potions I needed, and now with everything crafted, I flew back to Ironforge, turned in the potions, and finally got the follow-up that sent me back where I belong, Stonetalon Mountains. It felt like a cosmic joke, all the travelling just to earn permission to keep questing in the zone I was already locked to, but that was a classic WoW. All of the travel just to scavenge enough quests to keep my Stonetalon run alive. The zone really didn't joke around. It made me work for every breadcrumb, every clue, and every excuse to stay here. And the funniest part, after all that effort, there was still a chance I would march into the Gorenzo's cave, pick a fight I shouldn't, and end my one life run in the stupidest way imaginable. While exploring again, I noticed a new Horde outpost tucked up in the hills. Looked like a Tauren settlement. I admired it from a safe distance. I had one life, and I wasn't in the mood to test territorial AI. Back in the camp, one gnome gave me a sarcastic little clap when he handed me the next objective. "Need assistance?" he said, as if he wasn't about to send me into the mines to fetch someone's mail. When he gave me a follow-up, I nearly sighed with relief. If he hadn't, after all that travel, I might have actually screamed. Then I remembered Ratchet. I was supposed to go back for some schematics or plans. Of course, more errands. I shoved that mental note to the side and decided I'd do it later. Then I came to the realization the letters I needed weren't even in the mine. They were lying out the front. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I had already cleared half of the place for nothing. But at that point, I was committed, so I continued further. Level 25 kobolds packed every corner. Dozens of them, entire families. At least I had overleveled them enough to mow through them without sweating. My plan became simple. Gather enemies, burst them down with flame burst, sit, chug a half of gallon of water, and then repeat. A sustainable little ecosystem of murder and hydration. At the very back of the mine entrance, I finally began the dangerous part, the godlike event. The whole thing had a reputation. People died here. A lot. When I saw the mob scale directly to my level, I understood why. I downed food and water before the first pull. My meteor trinket burned out for a 50 hit, which helped a ton, and my mana generation was surprisingly quick. 4 waves in, spider summons, mana port ready, and despite a couple of close calls, I handled all of it with a bit of breathing room. When the final wave dropped and the quest completed, I actually exhaled. Not bad at all. My AoE damage was carrying harder than I expected. Then everything respawned behind me. Fantastic. I slipped out before the whole mine reset on top of my head. Then I dinged, choose a new scroll that boosted both fire and holy damage, and suddenly the Flaming Templar theme felt real again. Things were burning everywhere I walked. Of course, I did one dumb thing. I forgot to turn in the escort quest. Ran back only to find half the mobs respawn directly on top of the NPC. Nearly died doing something that trivial. Story of my life. Ratchet sent me on another detour, but at least it connected back to Stonetalon. And there was another spider egg quest waiting for me. I gathered them on the way toward Garenzo cliffside hideout. Eventually, I reached the platform above the hills, Garenzo's domain, and approached the goblin menace himself. Surprisingly, Garenzo wasn't deep inside the tunnel anymore. He stood right at the entrance. He died quickly. Lightning, flames, and steel made short work of him. He dropped some mechanical arm component tied to a spell I didn't even have. I kept it anyway. Something about it felt important. Then came the jump, a notorious cliff jump that had ended more hardcore runs than any boss in the zone. I lined it up, braced myself, and landed safely. With Garenzo down, I finished a few more errands, grabbed more quests, and headed into the Charred Vale. On the way, near the mountainside, I stopped in front of something strange. A fully built but inaccessible dungeon, walled off by an invisible barrier. A preview of content Ascension had been working on. It looked promising, and it broke my heart little knowing I couldn't step inside. In the Charred Vale, harpists filled the sky. Some were casters, some were melee, and all of them were aggressive. But I was strong now, stronger than I would ever been in those runs. Then I saw her, a harpy pyromancer, a rare monster, so I pulled her. She cast a devastating fire spell that hit harder than I expected. Then Sister Riven, another caster, patrolled too close. She pulled as well. Suddenly, I had 2 elite spellcasters melting my health bar. I panicked, used bandages, backed up, kited, anything to stop the burn. But one crit was all it took. My HP evaporated, so I tried to run. I tried to gouge. I tried to survive. And just like that, the Flame Templar fell. My 1 life run ended right there, in the Charred Vale, surrounded by the burning trees and a pile of feathers. It was painful, stupid, sudden, and honestly, a little funny. After all that planning, all the preparation, all the traveling, my run ended mid-sentence against a pyromancer who didn't care about my destiny. The funny thing is that I still had my Earthbind of cooldown, although I haven't been using it really throughout this run, and I didn't get used to it, so I completely forgot about that. And that was the end of the Fire Templar and my hardcore run.